Another question I have for you relates to the 2010 free agency whirlwind of,
Yeah.
LeBron, Bosh, all those guys, Boozer. So I know you guys got a meeting with LeBron, and I
Yeah.
know from background research I've done, I think Bosh and Boozer were also a few of the players you were after. So can you tell us about what those meetings were like, or what being in the midst of all of that was like at the time?
Yeah, I mean, we were coming off 12-70 record, right? So we didn't really have much of a selling point, and we were playing in Newark, New Jersey for 2 years as the arena in Brooklyn. So there wasn't quite of an appeal to come to New Jersey back then, but we did have 35 to 40 million dollars in cap space, which was a lot in 2010 because I think max guys were like 12 to 13 million. So you can maybe fit three guys or two guys and build out your roster. We had a new owner in Mikhail Prokhorov, this Russian billionaire who nobody knew about. So he had a lot of appeal for players wanting to sit down and pick his brain. We met with LeBron. I think we were the first team that went in. And we went later on today. We met with Bosh and Dwayne Wade in Chicago. LeBron was in Cleveland here. Jay-Z was in the meeting in Cleveland. I never thought we were in it. I think I always thought it was about learning about Mikhail Prokhorov and the allure. And then maybe there was nothing wrong with meeting. Maybe 4 years from now, when LeBron's a free agent, that Brooklyn was cool and that he knew he had to sit down with his owner and there was going to be unlimited resources to do that. The same with Bosh and Wade. I think when, you kind of knew they weren't going to come here. Did I know they were going to Miami on July 1? No, I didn't know that here. And I think it's a lesson where when you have $40 million or $35 million in cap space, like, you don't need to spend it all at once, right? Like you can you can maybe sign a couple of guys, maybe you can acquire a player in a trade like Memphis did with Iguodala and get a draft pick down the road, being at the right place. And yeah, I mean, the summer of 2010 was a whirlwind because Rod Thorne, as we talked about earlier, was leaving. So Rod was conducting free agency with, in the process of interviewing GMs, and Billy King came along, a couple weeks later, and we had already signed Jordan Farmar and Yohan Petro and Travis Outlaw and those guys there. And we were going to meet with Boozer in Orlando during summer league. And, I think we had offered Carlos 5 for 70, I want to say, or 5 for 65, and Chicago came in with a better offer, and it worked out for us better that we weren't tied into that Carlos Boozer contract. But yeah, I mean, I think that's the big thing is that when you have 35 million or 40 million, or teams this offseason, like Atlanta has 40 plus million, that you don't need to go out and sign three guys to $13 million contracts, because then it really ties into your flexibility. And there's always going to be a team or teams down the road that are going to want to dump players, and you can pick up a first round pick or maybe 2 second round picks, and you're just kind of at that dumping ground, for salaries and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, it was a fun process because it was such a loaded free agent class. I mean, we might be seeing that next summer, the off season of maybe fall 21, where we're looking at another loaded free agent class, and we'll see what happens with the salary cap. But it was fun because in my office I had a whiteboard and I had all these names, on there: Rudy Gay and Carlos Boozer and all these names. And then you just be like, all right, he's off. You just crossing the board, the names off, and then you're just looking at it, and this is who you're staring at left. Like, oh my God. And then you have an ownership group like who is new, and it's probably like, well, wait a minute, like, why aren't we signing anybody? Like, and I think a lot of it was probably like an introductory to how this business works, where there is a salary cap. It's not like baseball where you can just go out and pay guys, Mike Trout money and $40 to $50 million.
What were the finals runs like for you with the Nats, with Jason Kidd and Vince Carter and Keith Van Horn and all those guys?
Well, we went first we did that. We went and got Richard Jefferson and Jason Collins and Scalabrini, and we wound up trading, and it's going back to the trade, right? So we had the seventh pick in the draft, and we moved back and got 14, 21, and I think 28 from Houston. We wound up getting like three first round picks. And Richard wound up, that was kind of the launching pad. And then the day later, we wound up agreeing to acquire Jason Kidd. Jason had 2 years left on his contract. We did not know if this was going to be a long-term marriage. Kenyon was coming off a year where he had injuries. Byron was going into year 2. Stephon Marbury was coming off an all-star game. And, we traded a younger player for Jason who had history in Phoenix. He was coming off a domestic violence incident. We did not know how this was going to work out. And you're playing in the Meadowlands, and you have 5,000 or 6,000 people. You're coming off 9/11. There was a lot of different things. So I didn't know where this team was going until we played Seattle on a Saturday and had about 3,000 people in the building at the Meadowlands, and wind up wiping the floor with them. And I was thinking to myself, like, we could be pretty good here, like just the style of play with Kenyon and Richard on the wings and Jason down low and Todd McCulloch, and how we had the Princeton office in place. And we had Lucius Harris and Aaron Williams and guys who were just role players. Kerry was healthy, Kittles, which he had never been healthy. And then you get into the meat of the season, and then you have the best record in the league. And then you face an Indiana team in round 1. And back then it was best of 5, no instant replay like now. And you lose game 1 at home. And then you're like, oh my God, we're in must-win games already. And that series defined, the next 2 or 3 years, because if you lose that series, right, 1-8, I don't know where you go from there. Probably Jason goes to San Antonio the year later, but that gave it a springboard. And then, you want to beat Charlotte, and then you play Boston in the Eastern Conference Finals, and you lose game 3, as they call it, the Boston Massacre, where we're up 19 in the fourth quarter, and they come back. But it was a heck of a run just because of where we were. I mean, we were a lottery team. We were known to be in Sea Caucus every May, with the ping pong balls. And to go through that was gratifying. And then you go into the following year with 02-03, and now you've got the target on your back, right? You're not going to kind of catch anybody under the radar, and you bring back the same group. But you made the Van Horn trade for Dikembe, which I think we probably all regret down the road, because Dikembe wound up getting hurt. We thought we played the Lakers in the finals that year in 02, and we thought, hey, we're going to need, if we're going to face this team again, we need somebody to guard Shaq. Well, the Lakers never made it to the finals. It was San Antonio. And so you have that expectation level, and we wind up getting through the Eastern Conference Finals. I mean, we wind up beating Milwaukee in 6 games. I think we won. And then we wind up sweeping Boston. We wind up sweeping Detroit, who were I think they were the 1 seed that year. And then, you go into San Antonio and you split, and then you think shoot, we've got a chance to win this thing. And then you wind up losing in 6 games. And so I think it would probably taught us that, and it's a lesson for Miami. What Miami's going through is it's a great accomplishment, but I think there's so much of a disappointment because you never know when you're going to get back there. And we never got back there. The following year, Jason gets hurt. The first game of the year, he blows his knee out, but winds up playing the whole year on a microfracture. And we have Alonzo, and he has the kidney. We wound up getting Vince in the trade. I'm sorry, we got Vince in the trade in 04, 05. And then we wound up firing Byron, and then you lose in a heartbreaker to Detroit in 7 games in the second round, and then it kind of just starts over again. And then we were always just a kind of a second round team here, but there's nothing better than playoff basketball, and being part of it and being part of building an organization.
And what was looking back at those teams too, you had a really strong coaching staff with Lawrence Frank, with Eddie Jordan, and, Byron Scott as the head coach. But how did the process go about from those finals runs and with, Hall of Famers like Jason Kidd and Vince Carter after those teams to having to rebuild and, transitioning to guys like Brooke Lopez and Darren Williams?
Yeah. I mean, it was, you go from finals, and then we had a year when we went 41-41 when Jason was hurt, or 42-40. That's when we acquired Vince during the year. And then it was basically kind of a new team again. you still had Jason and Richard, but then you bring Vince in, and then you're and then you get to a point where in 06, 07, you lose to Cleveland in the second. Yeah, I think Cleveland in the second round. And then the following year, Jason figures like, this is not like we've kind of hit the dead end here. Right. So how do you kind of pivot? Right. So how do you have a playoff team? And how do you start like trading off pieces here? Like, with the trading Jason to Dallas for Devin Harris and multiple draft picks, eventually trading Vince to Orlando, trading Richard to Milwaukee here. Probably not maximizing the value of those players. We probably could have maybe not Jason, but those other two players. And then you're really relying on what is the plan? Like, what is the plan as far as we going to go youth? Are we going to be young again? We had a good draft with Brooke and Ryan Anderson and Chris Douglas Roberts. But then you trade Ryan with Vince to Orlando. So, like, I don't know if we ever had a plan to kind of how we were going to maybe retool, not rebuild. And then when you miss out on the draft picks, what hurt us a lot was we had a stretch of years where we picked Sean Williams, Antoine Wright, Marcus Williams, and Josh Boone. Right, 4 players there who they all had moments during their career, but there was never that foundation in place. So when Jason Kidd got older and Richard Jefferson got older and Vince Carter got older, there was nobody to look down on the bench and be like, all right, who is that next guy up? Like, who is that second unit? Because we had probably missed out on those draft picks.
What was it like working in the New York market, and what was the energy and environment like when you transitioned from New Jersey to Brooklyn? And do you feel from your experience that were there like additional stressors or pressures of building a winning team compared to being in a Sacramento market or Minnesota or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think, well, first, I never thought we would get to Brooklyn. I mean, I thought there was so much legal stuff going on that the market had crashed, in 2008 or 2009. It took forever. That was something that started in 2005, right?
Wow.
We finally got there in 2012. It was different because we were still practicing in New Jersey. The practice facility wasn't in Brooklyn like it is now. Then when they moved there in 2016, I think there was an expectation that we needed to have a winning product when we walked in here. Looking back on it, I think that was a false. I think that was a false notion. I really do. I think you could have built that team with homegrown players and let the fans embrace that they are one of their own. How Miami has done it with some of their younger players. If you have that young core to develop, that you did not have to go out and get a Darren Williams or a Joe Johnson or a Gerald Wallace or a Paul Pierce or Kevin Garnett. You could have, and I'm not saying you could have walked in with an expansion team, but you could have had a young base in place and let the fans be a part of it. I think a big part why the fans in Brooklyn love the Nets, before Kevin and Kyrie got there, is that they saw Joe Harris grow up. They saw Dinwiddie grow up. They saw D'Angelo Russell grow up. They saw them develop these guys here, where we kind of walked in with a team was already ready made with the expectation, because we felt that we needed to come in with a winning product. I think looking back, I don't think that's the right way to do it. It's easier said than done, 7 years from now, 7 years, later, when we're all kind of feeling the heat that we needed to have a playoff team in Brooklyn.
And I remember at the time, didn't the Nets have like a TV show or something with PJ when PJ was the coach, where it was like behind the scenes with the Nets or something, and it kind of hyped up the move to Brooklyn and to Barclays and stuff like that? Am I wrong?
PJ was on staff here. So I don't know if there was a show, but yeah, there was so much hype going into Brooklyn. You had the colors, you had Jay-Z, you had, this new building. We got off to a really good start. I think we were 9-4. We had just beaten New York, and and then Avery gets fired at Christmas time, and PJ takes on and goes 34-19 and has a great stretch. And that's probably one of the things, I regret, is that PJ didn't stay on. And then we went out and got Jason. And then when you hire your former Hall of Fame point guard as your head coach, and you make the Boston trade, it just adds another layer of it. It became to be not enjoyable. It wasn't enjoyable, although, because you had so much pressure. Because if you knew it didn't work out, you knew what the downfall was going to be.
Transitioning, after your time with the Nets, you began your opportunity with ESPN. How did that come about, and what was that transition like for you, and what did you bring from your front office experience that has helped you in your analyst role now?
Well, I never thought I'd be in the media, to tell you the truth. My transition is that my contract wasn't, or my option wasn't picked up in May of 2015. I had no idea what I wanted to do in my life at all. You got 2 kids at home and you're 40 years old and you're like, what do I do now? I just been with a team for 20 years, right? Like, this is all I knew. Like, this is how I drove to work. I went to the bagel store, that same bagel store every time. And then it's funny. My first break that I got was from Mark Stein, right? And it was around the draft of 2015. And I remember texting a lot of people, and I said to Mark, hey, if ESPN needs me, he needs anything around the draft, free agency, I'm a 2-hour drive. I'll drive up there. And he, about an hour later, said, hey, they want you for TV. Have you ever done TV? I was like, no, but I'll figure it out, So I went up there and right before the draft, and I did Sports Center. Never done TV before, ever. Live TV, Sports Center. Producer comes on and says, look the person in the eye and, have a conversation, right? And did like 6 different segments, and then got a call back about right before free agency, and did another segment. Did a bunch of segments, and then I was like, well, this is pretty neat, right? Like, this might lead into something. And then right before free agency started, I figured, you know what? I never had gone on Twitter before or social media. I'm going to start reacting when players are signed or there's transaction and there's trades. I'm going to give a perspective post-transaction when a deal happens. And I'm going to give my knowledge as far as why teams make trades or why and try to give readers something, right? So that's how it all started, man. I had 360 followers. By the second week of free agency, I had 10,000.
Wow.
And it just kind of built up like crazy. And it really was just kind of giving my knowledge as far as being in the front office, being from the viewpoint of the team, why it's good, why it's bad, what was the thinking of why a team did that. And I had known Woj for a long time. He had worked at the Bergen Record covering the Nets, and met him on the concourse in Vegas for Summer League in 2015. And we talked, and he's like, hey, he was with Yahoo at the time. And he said, we're going to start this side basketball called, I don't know, maybe the Vertical. But it's just going to be basketball centric. And we're going to have specialties, guys who are specialists. It's myself, breaking news. We're thinking of hiring this young kid named Shams, who is breaking news. Mike Schmitz and Jonathan Gavoni were going to do the draft, and Nick DePaula was going to do sneakers, and Chris Mannix is going to do features, and Michael Lee was going to do so he's like, we might want somebody to have like front office perspective. Granted, I had never written before in my life, besides being in college. I had never written an article. And I said, oh, yeah, that must be great. So I flew out to California, met with Yahoo, and I got back to my hotel, and they offered me a job. Like, here are the terms. I was like, this doesn't happen. Like, we're going to, it's a 3-year contract. This is what, your money and stuff and all that stuff. And I said, all right, great. So in the meantime, the Vertical wasn't going to start until like December or January. I had done some freelance stuff for Hoops Hype, and I'd written a couple articles. Well, my first article was about the free agency class of 2016, KD's free agency class. I sat at my computer and just stared. I had no idea what I wanted to write. I knew it, but I couldn't put it like sentences together, like, or paragraphs together. And they wanted 2,500 words on that free agent class. And luckily for me, my wife's a teacher, and she kind of jump started me. It's like, that's how it started, like with that. And then when I got to Yahoo, when we started this thing up at Yahoo in 2016, I mean, we were like, there were 6 of us going against like 40 at ESPN, but we had a great platform, and we were doing videos, and we were writing articles and transactional. And that's how the ball really got going. And we were doing the draft show and free agency show and trade deadline show. And we really built up a great product. So by the time that, ESPN came into play in, I guess, 2017, we were like, this is what we want. And, I loved my time at Yahoo, and it was great, but hey, I mean, it's ESPN, right? Like, it's like the mothership. Like, you're going from AAA at Yahoo to going to play for the Yankees and stuff. And it was like an opportunity I couldn't turn down. And we, most of us wound up going, some stayed behind, some went other ways. And it was a whirlwind because our first day was July 1st. We started on July 1st, 2017, the Paul George trade, right? Like, that's how it happened. And it just kind of gone. It went from there. So you go from a team of 70 to a team of 30, right? And it's just, it's a different mindset here. I've loved it. It gives me a platform to kind of, write about teams in the front office and the salary cap and offseason and the draft and free agency. There weren't many people doing it back in 2015, 16. Now there's a bunch of people. There's people at The Athletic who do a great job. There's people at Yahoo. There's people at other Hoops Hype or, Hoops Rumors and stuff like that. But I guess, consider myself kind of as the starting point of people love transactions. People love free agency sign.
Yeah.
People love how money works and how they can fit in. How can my team go out and get this guy? Or how can my team go out and trade for Anthony Davis or Kawhi Leonard? And so that's kind of how it all started.
When you're on SportsCenter or ESPN,
Yeah.
one thing that everybody watching you on ESPN, we see you working the touch screen,
Right.
dragging trades, dragging potential options with cap. Everybody wants to know this. How fun is it to work that board?
It wasn't fun in the beginning. Trust me, it wasn't fun in the beginning. My first dealings with the touchscreen was, I think it was the draft lottery of 2018. I want to say, we probably did some stuff around the trade deadline of 18 and stuff. But I remember being up there doing stuff about Cleveland, right, the night of the lottery. And it was LeBron's, it was his last year. It was going to be probably last year in Cleveland. And this is what I would recommend to people who are trying to get in this business. Never write a script and have something pre-rehearsed, like what you are going to say, like you're a machine. So I remember going like, well, this is what I'm going to say about Cleveland, right? I'm going to get up there and I'm going to have my depth chart board here, and I'm going to give this monologue about LeBron. And I remember Mark Jones asking me a question. It totally threw me off. And I just was like, the monologue basically went out the window, and I'm like piecemealing, and I'm stuttering, and I'm like doing all these things. And that was my first foray with the touchscreen there. And then going up there and going up to ESPN a couple of weeks later, really making a concerted effort to learn this thing. And not just learn it to half-ass, but learn it to give people an easy view on how things work, right? On how the depth chart and how we can superimpose it and how we can hit different buttons, and a menu can come down and it can show salaries, or how we can do the free agent board where we're sliding guys in and putting money in, and it really makes it easy for us. So when we're doing an Anthony Davis trade last offseason, it makes it a lot easier for the viewer. And it's just having a comfort level, right? It's like the weatherman. when the weatherman's up there and he's showing where it's going to rain, and I'm up there, and and then we kind of added on. But yeah, I mean, I loved. It went from me like dreading it to be like, oh my god, I got to go up on live TV and do this touch screen, and to loving it, because I think it gives the viewers like a better understanding of everything.
Speaking of your time in media and in a front office too, what have been your most rewarding or valuable experiences looking back at your career?
Yeah, I mean, rewarding is that, being part of, last off season was the craziest thing I've probably ever went through in my life. And it was rewarding in a sense where with Kawhi, with KD, with Kyrie, to be able to be part of that team at ESPN, especially with Woj, and to be part of breaking news, and to be the kind of like the center of attention for a 7-day period where, I didn't go home for 60 days. I lived in a hotel room for 58 nights.
Wow.
And when I got home in mid-July, I was like, it took me a while to like adjust to my kids and my wife, like to be told what they do. But that was probably the most rewarding process that I ever went through, working with Woj side by side, in there. He's breaking news, I'm analyzing it. People are waiting for our reaction to different things. And I've learned I'm not a finished product. Like that's what I've learned. Like I am not done. Like I'm always trying to get better. I think what I've learned is that it's important to be respectful of people in the media. Okay. I call this the Frank Isola rule, and not because I'm going to criticize Frank Isola. In 2015, when I was dabbling in the media, Frank Isola had commented about a trade or something. I don't know. It was about draft picks, and Frank Isola had information that it wasn't right, and it wasn't his fault. And I went on to Twitter and commented on it, and I got my ass chewed out by Frank Isola. And I learned from it is that, hey, this is a hard job. If you have something that's wrong, direct message the person. Get a cell phone, send him a text, say, hey, just get heads up. It's really that pick is protected 1 to 8. It's not 1 to 20. You don't need to embarrass somebody on social media. I see that all the time, right? People are commenting, people are criticizing. So I call that the Frank Isola rule. And that's probably one of my biggest lessons that I've learned that's valuable to me now, where if somebody has that to reach out to them directly and say, even if it's somebody from another company, because it's only going to help them to do that.
Your Twitter bio is very simple. Adopt, don't shop when it refers to dogs. I'm going to give you the chance right now to plug your dog's names, what kind of dogs they are.
So I have a dog. I have a Pomeranian. She's actually sleeping in my office right now. Her name is Skylar. Okay. And she was a rescue dog that my son wanted a dog for his birthday, his 11th birthday. My wife didn't want it. We had a dog a long time ago, and she didn't want a dog. And we did a lot of research, and we found this site that has rescue dogs. And she's a Pomeranian. She's a 11-pounder female. We got her in January. When I got back from the trade deadline, she was sick about 3 weeks into us having her, to the point where she had to go get 3 blood transfusions because she had an autoimmune disease where her blood level was down to like 13% red blood cells, which is not healthy. So she wound up getting these triple blood transfusions. It was a lot more. We probably could have went out and bought and paid for what I paid for the medical bills, and she wound up living. Like she survived and is healthy and is like my companion when I'm writing and is in my office. And you go through the pandemic and you're home for 5 months and you got you saw the adoptions go up. So that's why I say, adopt, don't shop, because I've seen people who go out and spend $6,000 at places and are buying these dogs. And she was a puppy mill dog. She was basically just producing babies. That's how she was. And, we got her in January, like we got her out of the car. She had never been on grass before. She had never been on a leash before. She basically lived in a cage for 3 years. So that's kind of my, I used to have a lot more on my Twitter bio. I used to have front office insider, Marist College, all these other things. So now I'm just simple. Adopt, don't shop, and vote. Right?
Yeah.
We all have the best. We live in the greatest country in the world. I don't care if you're Republican or Democrat or who you vote. That's one of the things I will never talk about on social media about. And if I do, shame on me, is politics. Or I try not to, because people want to learn about sports from me or the CBA. I'm not telling you to vote for Donald Trump or Joe Biden, but I'm telling you to go out and vote. I think too many people in this country don't do that. And you have the opportunity to reelect President Trump, or elect a new president, or elect a judge in your county that maybe, can change things, or a senator or a governor. And we see that there's an uptick right now because, when November 3rd comes, it's always like, yeah, I didn't vote this year. Well, why not? It's free. All you got to do is register. That's it.
I'm somebody who's grown up in Naples, Florida, and I know that's where you currently are. And in Naples, we don't come across too many people living here who either work in sports or work in, sports media. So how did you end up in Naples?
It's funny. My in-laws have been here since 2004, and we had been visiting for a long time. And the running joke was always, we'd come in here and we'd drive around and be like, who works here? Like,
Yeah.
how does a young person move to Naples and work here? Like, where do you go to work? Like Publix or whatever? Like how do you? And then you learn, like, what? A lot of people work from home, or they're in the finance business and stuff. And when I had gotten the job at Yahoo, we didn't have any ties left to Northern Jersey, and we figured, hey, it's Florida. There's no state taxes. The cost of living is better. I'm a flight to New York, or eventually a flight to Bristol, or we have an airport here. I can work from home. I can set up my office as a studio. And that's how we got to Naples. I think it's rewarding a lot at times, but I think on the downside, it does become a little more challenging, because when you live in Northern Jersey, you can get on the train and go to Brooklyn or New York and go to a game, where now I'm driving 2 hours to Miami, or 2.5 hours to Orlando. And sometimes I joke about people. I call it the witness protection program, right? Of the Southwest, or Southeast. Like, if you want to fall off the map and be forgotten about, you can go to Naples, right?
Definitely.
You're kind of like in your own little bubble, but it's been rewarding. It's not like I'm sitting on the beach or on the golf course, writing articles and stuff like that. I work, I get my 12 hours in or my 10 hours in, but I don't get it in. It doesn't have to be 9 to 5 like it used to be working for a team, or 9 to 6. It could be weekends, or it could be nights. It could be all over the place.
Are you a beach or pool guy?
You know what? I am probably I'm a beach guy, but only for like an hour and a half. Like, I'm like, you know what? I can go to a beach and bring my laptop and write maybe, but I'm not a big outside guy for like 3 or 4 hours. So yeah.
Do you have a go-to beach spot in Naples that's like your mainstay, or do you like to switch it up?
Well, Loudermilk Beach is probably one of the best, just because they got a snack shop and they have great sorbet. So that's probably why I like Loudermilk. But we've got great beaches down here. I mean, we really do. It's they're off the charts.
Definitely. And my final question for you, and we really appreciate you joining us on the podcast today, is what is some advice you'd have for young college kids or high school kids who want to go into sports business or sports media?
Well, the first thing I would do, I would recommend an internship. I think that's the first thing. I think it's important to network. I think it's important to meet people. I think it's important to cold call. I think it's a little more challenging now, because we're basically like still in this pandemic phase, and you're not out and about meeting people. But I think it's important to do all those things. Don't be afraid to send somebody a direct message like you sent to me, and I'll respond. And that's a big reason why I do that. That's why, there's not many people leave their direct messages open. Like, my wife thinks I'm crazy, but I'm like, well, no, because 90% of the people are asking CBA questions, or they want to, do radio and stuff like that. It's important to network and just talk to people. And when you have that opportunity, as I said, when we started, and it's not something that you desire, but it is an opportunity of working in sports, that you go out and do that.
Definitely. And that's great advice. And thank you for answering my message. I really appreciate it.
You got it.
Yeah. And so thank you so much for coming on. And Jack, do you want to close out the show?
Of course. And if anybody wants to follow Bobby Marks on Twitter, it is Bobby Marks 42. And as always, not the same time, same place. We will see you guys later.